folks, it's crunch time to discuss major developments in the polity. And so if you're ready, it's another episode in the series, Homo Politicus on Enterprise TV. I'm Cyril Abaku, and on the show today, Labour Party at loggerheads with Dr. Doyin Okupe following his resignation from party membership. So here's the story. The Labour Party has described Doyin Okupe, a former Director General of the P2B Presidential Campaign Council, as a political opportunist whose exit from the party had not come as a surprise. The party, in a statement by its National Publicity Secretary, Obiora Ifo, on Tuesday, berated Okupe for claiming that the LP was just a special purpose vehicle to actualize the presidential ambition of Mr. Obi. He cited ideological differences for his decision to dump the party. Speaking on the ideological differences, Ifo described Okupe as a political, opportunist, though he used a much stronger term. He said Mr. Okupe was committing political harlotry. He added that the LP remains a leftist party with an unwavering ideological stance. Ifo maintained that the departed member made very little contribution to the success of the LP during the presidential election. In December 2022, Okupe, a former presidential spokesperson, resigned as the campaign DG following his conviction in a money laundering case. Now, I have with me today to discuss this subject, Dr. Olabisi Deju Folutile. She is a journalist and public affairs commentator. Madam, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you so much.
I also have Mr. Akefa Tunke, who is a chartered accountant and public policy expert. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. It's nice to be here.
The question in question, if you let me use that phrase, is a term we only hear when politicians want to defect from party to party. They say ideological differences. On rare occasions, they say personal reasons. But a lot of times they say, we don't ever get to, first of all, was either Mr. Okupe, he was spokesman of the NRC in the Third Republic. Now, speaking of doing, but later he was spokesman to the president, to former president, Olusegun Obasanjo. I don't know if we know his political trajectory enough to classify him as a right-wing politician. I don't know if that's something that crosses anybody's mind on the table here.
Well, Doyin the medical doctor,
yes,
Okupe, the Okupe man, and it's not somebody you can just shift anyhow. So he said it's
for his political size or weight.
Everything.
His political size.
The manner of speaking, but on a much more serious note. What Dr. Doyin Okupe has done, for me, it's not new. It's not surprising. That happens virtually everywhere. I do not want to go into maybe a bit of mudslinging from the Labour Party itself. I am not sure it's only Doyin Okupe that found himself, according to him, sidelined. In the north of Nigeria, quite a number of people also said that the party decided to skew itself towards a particular direction and not get everybody kind of involved, allegedly. To me, I think he was gentleman enough to say he was going to call it quits. I read in the social media long before now that there were a lot of misgivings as regards his relevance. I also learned that there are a lot of, misgivings as regards some of his, cases convicted and, alleged that were going to go in court that will not augur well for the party itself proper. But I also know that at the end of the day, even the presidential candidates allegedly did this, allegedly did that, who did this,
the headwinds that the parties had together.
And that at the end of the day, my dear friend and brother that I know, like a bosom, Professor Patutomi was going to be the president and then he has to kind of step down, and then, Peter Obi became. What am I therefore saying at the end of the day? If the gentleman says he has ideological non-congruence, I'd like to know all this one about now abusing or re-abusing to me is indicative of the fact that,
So that
it's not relevant and it's not very, very important. Allow him to go. He says he wants to go. Let him go.
So let come to Dr. Deji for you today. The issue at odds, why the Labour Party and Okupe appear to be at odds, isn't really for any other reason other than the fact that he described the Labour Party as a special purpose vehicle. It's like, I think there's a saying in Igbo land, they say something like a leaf and something else, and that since you don't like the face of what you want, you use the leaf to cover and do it, and then you get. So move on. So it was like I didn't like them, but I went into the marriage nonetheless for what I was looking for.
For what we were looking for.
Yes. Now that it didn't work, I'm packing my bag and walking away. It was never attractive to me. I never wanted it. It wasn't like. So I don't think anybody hearing those words about that person will feel like applauding for the person saying those things. I think that's what the Labour Party is really coming from, saying, we let you into our ranks. You brought baggage, and now you're leaving. You wouldn't even leave quietly. You are not rubbing mud in our face. That's where the issue seems to lie.
And I align with the Labour Party on that. And it's just unfortunate that in Nigeria, our politicians are not committed to any form of ideology. They are, like he just said, that is just a political vehicle.
Special purpose
vehicle.
SPV or SUV.
A special purpose vehicle to get to power. Look at that. Look at that. So which means that even if Labour Party had won, it just meant that the ideology of Labour Party
and of the workers
and of the workers, yes, the Labour Party now wouldn't have influence governance, even though the party that came to power was supposedly a Labour Party for the workers, because they brought. It was just like, okay, we needed to contest. We need you, and Labour Party also.
Big fish.
Yes, and Labour Party also. Is that why Labour Party was not committed to his own ideology?
Yes.
As a party, otherwise you wouldn't even have welcomed this so-called right of center wing politicians. But it is not strange also in Nigeria. Remember that our politicians, even now, right in front of us in Rivers State, lawmakers that were elected on the platform of People's Democratic Party, one day decided to defect to All Progressive Congress, and they still want to remain in that House of Assembly, forgetting the fact that the people that elected them probably elected them based on the ideology, if there is any ideology of PDP. You get it? And it's so bad. I know many governors that used to dance here and there. Mimiko was one of them. Dr. Mimiko of Ondo State. He was in Labour Party, crossed over to PDP. Even if I'm not sure if he was not in APC or SDP.
Zenith Labour Party.
Zenith Labour Party. Just that's what they do. So it will have been enough really for Dr. Okupe to resign. And what is it? It's not even about rightist or leftist. We all know what is behind all these things. Politicians now.
We are coming to that.
Okay.
Mr. Okupe was spokesman of the National Republican Convention, NRC, which, in fairness to him, was the party that Babangida said was a little to the right. In principle, he resigned his membership of the party when the elections were annulled and all sorts of things were happening. But He also later became spokesman to President Obasanjo. The PDP likes to see itself as a conservative rightist party anyway, even if they were not really. But now where I'm going with this is, he is an image maker. He's a spokesperson. He's into PR. He understands the power of language. He understands the meaning of words. He understands. So he could have been one managing somebody's resignation from a party. So he knew what he wrote. He knew the possible fallout. Yet he chose to write what he wrote. He could have said personal reasons, but he said, would you be surprised if tomorrow or next week he got appointed? I mean, he was invited to, I don't know how to put this, but he was given a letter. I mean, in the national interest. If he was asked to undertake an assignment in the national interest,
yes, no.
Should he say he wouldn't undertake it, sir?
He would,
in the national interest.
He will take it too.
In the national interest.
Very will take it. Whilst we are looking at Labour, please let me divert. APC is not special purpose. NNPP and also not a special purpose vehicle, and the guy has now gotten out. It looks to me like the person that has decided to just tick in, for good or for bad, is President Bola Tinubu. But that's another subject entirely. I think it was Farika Yode, my dear friend and brother Fani, who said something. I'm not too sure that when you're on the table, when you are eating, concentrate on your eating. Don't talk because it's going to be bad manners. So if you stock another national interest paper to my dear brother who says that he's not going to take it, after all, politics like around, that's what it said, is who gets what, where, at home. It's only the one that can read the most, that can be equivocative, the most, that can, let me be careful to say still, that can be the most corrupt that we'll have. I do not want to pretend I didn't hear you. There's something that you said just now, and it's only fair for me to just address it. You said, you want to leave. Like I said, you should leave. You know the power of language. Why will you now then just want to tell
rub it in the face?
It tells you
a final act.
It tells you that there is a rift. He doesn't want to go free and not just drop one and decide to drop one. And you know that if you chase the wind will come after you. And of course, the Labour Party is also now then coming. Don't be surprised that ahead of 2027, we are still thinking of another special proposed vehicle, that between the Labour and PDP. Hopefully, Atiku Abubakar will do the needful and allow Peter Obi to come in, and then he can support him. Another special proposed vehicle is going to want to come.
Is
all these special proposed vehicle that innocent cannot accept. You can't even fathom it. At the end of the day, what happens to us? We continue to regress backwards. I think this is an opportunity to once again, for the umpteenth time, say that our constitutional and electoral acts, we still put a lot of expectations of political parties. Can we now begin to have, people who can just run without necessarily being the parties? Can we just accept that? If that was in place, Peter Obi will have perhaps.
You also got into the place of ideology. Taking this discussion home, the place of ideology in the political space. You could be leftist, you could be progressive, you could be,
rightist.
Be from the Labour Unions, you could be centrist, a little here, a little there. The middle cause, you're liberal, and then you could be over to the right, like the Republicans, and stick with those same values. But one shudders why indeed our politicians only use ideology as a special purpose vehicle in itself. they write manifestos, they write very lofty things. But in reality, there's the PDP and the APC, there's no difference. They are not NPP and because you saw in the PDP last night, but this morning is in the APC. And nothing, I mean, yeah, when you change parties, it's like you're changing your mindset. I mean, you couldn't go to the Republican Party and go and be making a case for democratic values. You couldn't be democratic values and leave you couldn't leave the Republican Party and come to the Democratic Party and be fighting for the Republican Party. It won't work. Yes, it won't work. Because the party system, the voters are aware, the party system is aware. But in our own country, Nigeria is a different country. Citizen John Hussein, who I'm standing in for today, will tell you that whereas politics should be about right and left, Nigeria is about right and wrong. Exactly. So the question is, where is ideology in our political space? If we can do this in a minute or two, as we wrap.
Well, I don't think we have come to that yet, and I don't know. Maybe it's also due to the political illiteracy of the populace.
Yes.
Because the way, and it wasn't like this in the past.
It was not.
It was not like this.
It was not.
I think the politicians are the ones directing our affairs, and they are the ones that are telling us what to do, where to go, and how to. Unlike a situation where the public themselves should be the one in charge of the affairs of their own political destiny. That is not the case here in Nigeria. Why I'm saying that is because in spite of the fact that you didn't want to use the word lottery, but in spite of the lottery that our politicians commit, they still have their way.
They do.
Nevertheless, which means that the public do not have the power. Yes. They determine the narrative, yes, and they get whatever they want until the people themselves are educated enough to say that, okay, like it's happening in Rivers State now. We are not even talking about whether the political party is committed to whatever ideology it claims to follow. If, for example, the people of Rivers State can insist that, look, we elected you on the platform of PDP. Once you have moved to APC, you do not have a place in our state's governance. If they can insist on that, then they will have won. And if we also have a constitutional provision that states that if you are elected on the basis of a party, you cannot move, yes, to another political party and, yes, still retain the position that you have been elected through another party. Maybe those things could help us, but when we make that law, the lawmakers that are benefiting from this, the politicians that are benefiting from this, they will not. Yes. So it is the people themselves that must arise and ensure that the right thing is done.
Let me come to Mr. Akinfatuke in 2 minutes or less.
From the River State.
Yes.
Please let me borrow from Nelson Wike, the barrister.
Yes.
If you know day, no day.
Yes.
No day, no day.
Yes.
We don't lie to ourselves.
Yes.
Sometimes you say these political parties don't have ideologies. When they are going to be sharing money, they have, the ideologies, everybody must get together. Whether you are left of the left or right of the center or Labour or PDP, when you are on the table and you want to start to grow, you don't make a lot of noise. But more seriously, it just says democracy is not working in Nigeria. Democracy as we envision should be working is not working in Nigeria. And I also think that we should begin to tinker with the constitution one way or the other. So Jones would say it's a problem constitutional or not constitutional. And of course, it's just, again, the kind of mindset that is missing from our polity. We are moving towards 2027. That's where you now then see that the ideology is to grab power. Special purpose vehicles, can we get it? If Bola Tinubu, as an example, can make more mistakes and show more incompetence, can we look for a special purpose vehicle that will take us and then we can go back? That's how Buhari and And Tinubu came into it at the end of the day. So a lot of banana peels pull out there. Where does that leave you and I? Madam is making the point that is lack of education. I begin to wonder sometimes some of our parents in the village, they don't have a lot of education, they have wisdom. But somehow, somewhat, something happens and they get just swept off their feet. I don't know what kind of water. I know where we go was the one spring in Nigeria, but I don't know the kind of water that's poverty of the mind. So I saw something similar happening to what you are talking about in River State, happened in Edo State. I brought in Obaseki. But Obaseki got in now, and then they are all fighting themselves to stop up. And then a third leg will now come in and win the elections. So what kind of ideology are we all talking about? But let's continue to expose them. Let's continue to tell them they are not doing things that are right. And let's continue to make sure that we ask them to reform their mind, their attitude, and reform the constitution so that Nigeria can get to the next level.
I mean, in a world where survival is the first instinct of man, it only bears question whether that shouldn't also be the first instinct of the political man in the political space. Because of course, before you talk about ideology, you must be alive to practice what you believe in. And unfortunately, in our own case, staying alive and staying afloat comes at such a steep cost that to even think of thoughts on an empty stomach becomes a big luxury to afford. It is on this that I would like to thank Dr. Olabisi Deji Folutile once again for being on the program today.
Thank you for having me.
It's been a joy having you, madam.
It's a delight being here.
Okay, I'm Mr. Akifatu, chartered accountant and public policy analyst. I mean, you have to leave some balance sheets with us this afternoon. It's a joy to have you, sir.
I tell you, thank you very much. Except the balance sheet is not balanced. We'll get there.
Yes. So on this note, we'd like to call it today on the show. Hopefully, Nigeria finds the courage and the decency to balance its acts. But in a nation where politics is a game of winner takes all, it is difficult to imagine how people won't cut corners and money won't flow below the table. It is on this note that we would like to thank you for being a part of our show today, Homo Politicus. It will come your way again next time. But in the meantime, we'd like to implore you to look at the screen, the foot of the screen, and subscribe to our pages on social media on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and of course, TikTok. Until Homo Politicus comes your way again, I'm Cyril Abaku saying bye for now. Cheers.
Enterprise TV, a tradition of truth.